And again, I'm going to ask that you be as brief as possible, but we do want to hear from you. And what we'll do is just unmute you. I will say your name and then unmute you. And then after you're done, I will unmute you again and go to the next person who wants to provide testimony until we've gone through either all those who want to provide testimony or 45 minutes is what we usually set aside for this. So with that, I'm going to start with Brett Morgan and see if I can unmute you, Mr. Morgan.
Hi, yes, can you hear me?
Yes, is this Brett?
This is Brett, yes.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, I'll go ahead and start then. Thank you, board members, for the opportunity to talk with you today. Although you can't see me, I'm actually in the back of my car, so maybe at some point in the future, I'll have the opportunity to join you from the back of a bus or a train or something similar. I wanted to provide some comment on Resolution 20-0523 regarding transit-oriented development guidelines. I put forward a letter which has been, I think, discussed already, but signed by Thousand Friends of Oregon, Housing Oregon, the Welcome Home Coalition, and Central City Concern. And if you haven't had the opportunity to review that, I encourage you to, because it will outline, I think, more of what I'm talking about in greater detail and specificity than I'll be allowed to today. Regarding the DOD guidelines, I think some concerns that community stakeholders have had on a broad set of scale is that we feel that the community engagement process and facilitation has not been a clear and transparent process in a way that we are able to work and effectively partner with TriMet staff. And so we kind of highlighted a few things. One, in the first bullet point, a set of immediate fixes we're targeting to the guidelines and things that we think might have been missed so far and would be benefited from inclusion in the guidelines before passage. The second item we outline is sort of some long-term guidance, some additional things we think would be valuable for these guidelines, specifically because we felt that the engagement process was a little hard to follow, and in the creation of these guidelines, further detail on what a public engagement process is going to look like on a site-by-site basis will be very valuable to, I think, community stakeholders as we go forward. And sort of just brushing up my comments here, I would say on a broad level, the public engagement process was a little confusing. I think while we came before you in October to present comment on the first draft of the board, first copy of these TOD guidelines, sort of any process and opportunity we've had to work on these guidelines since have been really driven by community asking for these things. So I think what we're looking forward going forward is hopefully something where there's more opportunity for the board to engage on these guidelines and revise them. We've had the opportunity to engage with TriMet staff as well, and we understand that these are a dynamic and a living document and that there's intentions to keep working on that. And we really are excited by that, but we do think that additional kind of oversight mechanisms and accountability from the board or with the public are needed as well. But we stand ready to continue this partnership, and we understand as well that, TriMet is facing some incredibly difficult financial uncertainty right now, and that this TOD program is a part of, I think, dealing with some of that. And so we want to work together to figure out what works best for everybody. So I'll close out by saying, please take a moment to read through our comments. But thank you for your time and thank you for the ability to comment.
Thank you, Mr. Morgan. I will point out, yes, we did receive the letter, and it is included in our packet of information we have. And so we'll be talking about that as a formal agenda item today, as you point out. So again, thanks for your testimony. I appreciate it. If the board members have any other comments? All right. With that, I'm going to move down to the next person on the agenda, which is Brenda Durban. And Brenda, I think you're ready to go.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
We can.
Great. Good morning, President Warner, directors. My name is Brenda Durban. I'm the Director of Clackamas County Social Services, and I'm here today to relay the county's concerns about the proposed reduction in TriMet support for Ride Connection. This public testimony is in addition to a letter that the board chair sent to TriMet earlier this week. So the proposed funding reduction will negatively impact community-based transportation services for vulnerable populations in the entire Tri-County area, and will have a really profound impact on the services provided in Clackamas County. Last year, the county and our senior center partners delivered over 68,000 rides to older adults and persons who experience a disability. Over 11,000 of these rides were for medical purposes. Much of the funding for these transportation services comes through our contract with Ride Connection, who has been a valued partner for many years. This funding makes up the majority of the dollars received by community center partners to provide transportation in the communities of Estacada, Gladstone, Lake Oswego, North Clackamas, and Oregon City. The loss of these funds will significantly reduce the number of rides that can be provided, as well as impact the number of drivers who can be employed. These rides assist residents in the community by improving access to nutrition services, grocery shopping, providing access to personal business, and as I previously mentioned, essential medical care. These residents will have limited access to other transportation services, and in many cases, they will be eligible for TriMet Lift service. The anticipated reduction in funding for Clackamas County alone is $100,000. We know that the current COVID-19 crisis has created a budgetary uncertainty for all organizations. As Clackamas County's largest transit provider, we're pleased to learn that TriMet received significant COVID-19 funding relief from the federal government. And while we appreciate the complexity of TriMet's budget, we're very hopeful that this funding can be used in a way to eliminate the need to reduce the general fund going to these critical community-based transportation programs. In closing, we respectfully request that you do not adopt the recommended reduction in funding for this program and that you retain the current level of funding to Ride Connection. And I sincerely appreciate your time today. I'm sorry, it looks like someone's talking, but I'm not able to hear.
Bruce, Doug Kelsey, you can hear me, you're on mute. Thank you very much for your testimony. I wanted to say we did receive your letter as well as a number of others because Ride Connection is a valuable partner for TriMet, and I think we were involved in the actual creation of Ride Connection and want to see it be successful. I'm going to ask the general manager when we get done with the input, may make a few comments about that on the budget. Because we do want to continue to work with you and want to, again, share the pain as equally as we can. So more to come to that, more on that. So stay tuned. Appreciate your comment. I'm going to move on to Tristan Isaac. Tristan,
hello, can you hear me?
You're open. We can.
Awesome. Good morning, members of the board. Thank you for this opportunity to testify. My name is Tristan. I'm a member of Bus Riders Unite. So during a walk the other day, I came to realize just how much I missed riding the bus. I haven't been aboard public transit since the beginning of the pandemic. I mostly work from home and have otherwise been limiting my non-essential travel. For someone who is transit dependent, it has been an isolating experience to no longer access my primary mode of travel. But I know it is important to do so to protect not only myself, but essential workers who use and indeed operate our transit system. But what I missed more than the places I used to go was the trip itself. The smooth ride, my favorite seats, friendly and familiar operators. Public transit is a lifeline, but more than that is an extension of public space itself. It is the commons, and we are all entitled to, also responsible for it. Ridership has fallen dramatically since the onset of the pandemic. It will likely take years, even decades, to recover, with many people still fearful of using it for the sake of their health. TriMet has performed admirably with regards to improving the sanitation of their system and vehicles in response to COVID-19. That work has largely been taken on by TriMet maintenance and service employees, the same folks who TriMet broke a promise to by deciding to eliminate apprenticeship programs. This is a massive betrayal of the dedicated workers of Amalgamated Transit Union 1057, who are the backbone of this agency, and Bus Riders United stands in solidarity with their fight for a fair contract. But even with their efforts, there are clear signs of a trend back towards high single-occupancy vehicle use, in addition to the traffic and the air quality impacts that will come with it as we recover from this pandemic. As I said, transit is a lifeline. It can be the hand that lifts our city to recovery, but only if TriMet dedicates itself to boosting ridership through accessibility. Historically, it has shown that during an economic downturn, the only areas that lose funding are security and police. In this year's budget, TriMet has already chosen to allocate millions of new dollars in new security spending. And I fear that next year will be even worse. With millions laid off, the last thing anyone wants or needs is more fare inspectors and cops, haranguing you for $2.50. People struggled to pay fare before the pandemic, and they will struggle more after. Fare inspectors are are not vital workers, nor are they necessary to operate a transit system. We need fair relief, not more fair enforcement. Using funding from the CARES Act, TriMet must develop a process to recover ridership and maintain service while implementing a moratorium on fair enforcement until the pandemic has passed. Supporting essential workers and helping our city recover must take precedent over enforcement of petty fares. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate your comments, and we will have a lot of discussion about, again, priorities and the plan to bring back riders as quickly as we can. So your points are right on. I'm going to move on to the next person, which is Richa Pujal, and I believe you're unmuted, and the floor is yours.
Okay, great. You can hear me?
Yes.
Great, thank you. Hello, good morning, President Warner, Board of Directors, and yeah, thank you for the chance to speak with you this morning from my home. My name is Richa Podell. I'm the Advocacy Director at the Street Trust, which is a membership-based nonprofit here in Portland Metro Region, working to improve conditions for walking, biking, and taking transit. I'm also transit dependent and have not ridden the system since the beginning of quarantine. The Street Trust is also an active member of TIAC, and the comments that I have today are topics that have come up amongst TIAC members at our last meeting. I know this is a challenging time for transit in general across the country, for TriMet in particular, and so I really thank you all for the work that you're doing to make a number of important decisions in this moment. I just wanted to speak to a couple of those decisions that you might be considering as you look at adopting a budget and kind of adapting to the current reality. So I know that many of us that depend on our transit system to get around, including me, are glad to hear that TriMet is receiving federal assistance in the form of $185 million from the CARES Act. And, you know, I think we understand that there may be some stipulations and restrictions on what that money can exactly be used for, but I just wanted to urge board members to ensure that community who might be affected by where this money goes is really meaningfully consulted in a transparent manner. As a transit advocacy organization, we really share this goal of wanting to restore ridership. As a rider myself, I share that goal of wanting to get back on the bus. And we know that will be an incredible challenge moving through this pandemic, so it just feels more important now than ever that riders are being involved in those budget decisions, so the allocations are truly based on the needs of riders and the things that we know will get them back on the system safely. So yeah, please do ensure a true, transparent public process for that part of the budget especially. And then the other ask that I kind of have is also around fair enforcement. We know and appreciate that right now, at least on the bus system, folks are allowed to ride when they don't have, even if they don't have their bus hot pass. But I think that this should be made much more clear to community, kind of like as clear as it was made that cash fares will no longer be accepted. I think this moment should really be about setting the system up for increasing ridership safely. We know that in general, decreasing the number of touch points and making it easier for passengers to keep a distance from drivers and each other is really important for making people feel safe enough to start riding the system again. So I guess at this time, when fares are already not a large source of revenue for TriMet, and when we're trying to make the system safe for riders again, I urge the board to really consider more clear and direct messaging to riders to let them know that fare enforcement is not a priority right now, and to really prioritize pausing fare enforcement so that we're removing those touch points on the system to support riders feeling safe on the system, both short-term and long-term. So thank you for a chance to connect, and as advocates, we're really looking forward to continuing to partner with you all in this hard time to build back our transit system and serve our riders.
Thank you very much for your testimony. We appreciate the work of your organization too, and I appreciate all of you for being very brief and meeting the 3-minute requirement. And I think you'll find that we'll have some substantive discussions about a number of these issues. And I'm going to ask if there's anybody else right now who wants to provide testimony. I don't see anybody else.
Bruce,
yes.
I have a message from Gabriella Saldana. She can't raise her hand, but she does want to speak, so I would like to unmute her.
Please do.
Okay. Gabriella, can you hear us?
Yes, can you hear me?
We can hear you. Go ahead.
Great, thank you. Christina Lopez, and I am with Bus Riders Unite, and I'm a community organizer for Opal Environmental Justice. And as you all have heard of me in the past, I have talked about how Opal organizes and prioritizes folks who are transit dependent, both youth, and focus on environmental and climate impacted communities. And we are really hoping to make meaningful, involved decision making. I'm disappointed in today's earlier meeting that the budget was adopted without seemingly not much consideration of public testimony. And to echo sentiments earlier by Tristan, it also is really disappointing that you as an organization have not come to an agreement with ATU Local 757 in their contract and have actually redacted your promise of providing the program. And I want to speak on the priorities that you all are having. As mentioned before, you all have received millions in CARES Act dollars, and a transparent plan needs to be in place for community members to feel that that money is being used in a way that is really for community, and being able to not just support a clean environment that was heard earlier on in the meeting, that you all are maintaining a rigorous cleaning schedule, which is super important. But there's also more to that. As also mentioned in the past, we cannot, or it needs to be clear to folks that collection of fares is not a priority at this time, that you can still ride the bus without your hop card, because that is not clearly stated, and we need to prioritize folks being welcomed into the system to keep the folks that we have in order to increase ridership, and that can only be done if enforcing fares is not a priority. People are hurting right now, and being someone for $2.50 is not something that people can even afford right now, and the fares and the fines that come after is definitely not worth the $2.50. And thinking about your budget as it is now, it is definitely costing you millions to obtain fares and everything that involves their recovery. So thinking over what your budget looks like is super important, and I don't think that has been done. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gabrielle. You should be aware of the meeting. It was held. It sounds like you're listening. It was a meeting from the Tax Conservation Supervising Commission, which actually endorsed our budget. We have not yet taken final action on our budget, and we will be considering changes and discussion of the budget before it's adopted by the end of this fiscal year. I'm going to ask the general manager maybe to comment when we're done here to talk about just where we are in the negotiations with the union, since there seems to be a lot of comments about that too. So, Jeffrey, is there anything else? Anybody else that has raised their hand?
No one else has raised their hand. I do want to give people on the teleconference an opportunity. If you would like to raise your hand and you are not joined to the WebEx meeting on a computer, you can dial *9 on your phone to raise your hand. And maybe we could just wait a minute to see if anyone would like to do that.
Jeff, I don't know if you can see my hand. This sounds like the Marshall Messner.
This is Director Edwards.
Yes, we can see your hand.
Okay. Just through the chair, I would like to ask also that the Executive Director explain the requirements for the use of the CARES Act funds, because I don't think some of the public may not be aware of those funds are dedicated funds and they have to be used for specific purposes.
Good comment, Director Edwards. I'll make sure I'm looking for the board members' hands also. You see any more there, Jeff?
No, it does not look like we have any more hands.
Okay, with that, I'm then going to close the public forum and move into our regular business meeting agenda, and I'm going to call the regular business meeting of the TriMet Board of Directors for May 27th, 2020 to order. And we have up on the screen before you our agenda. The first agenda items are the board reports, and I'm going to ask Director Stovall if we have any report from the Finance and Audit Committee.
We do. The Finance and Audit Committee actually met on May 11th, and just kind of an update for the board as I give this update. The Finance and Audit Committee is actually going to be potentially meeting more regularly rather than the once a month as things arise and issues become very important to deal with. The Finance Committee will be meeting again at least once a month as we normally do, and then again as required and needed to get further updates in regards to what's going on with the current pandemic and our response to that. So our last meeting on May 11th, we got an update, the Finance Committee got an update on kind of our response in regards to kind of what's going on in the pandemic. It's a dynamic situation everybody's aware of, and that dynamic, the potential of this changing rapidly is always in play. So we're getting these these ongoing updates, but once we get an update, things change quite rapidly. So we received just an update at that point in time as to kind of what was going on in our response. The majority of that the board is already aware of, and just not a ton of stuff has really changed ultimately in regards to our response, but we're just really starting to solidify some of the numbers that we're now that are now better coming into view, and continue to kind of get the true number that's going to be coming in that aid. So we've got from the COVID-19 federal aid that we've discussed a number of times. So that was the majority of the conversation, is kind of getting that further update, kind of the latest highlights. And again, I'm sure if we met today, things would probably be even a bit more different than they were back then. The second agenda item that we discussed was an update to the business plan for the next year, kind of some highlights, some changes and adjustments, and mostly it was in response to some of the things that are kind of pending and how they relate to, again, the pandemic response. So we've got some items that are going to be highlighted, and the team did a great job of kind of highlighting the differences and the adjustments that are going to be made from timelines to ensure that we are still able to move forward some of the key business plan items, but also knowing that our current state of having to work from home, not having the opportunity to really be able to get all the input needed and required to move some of these projects forward. Those timelines are going to change, and some of those projects are going to adjust a little bit. And so we got an update on those topics. Again, this stuff will be coming to the board, as we continue to unpack this, and the board will have an opportunity to kind of weigh in and hear some thoughts and ideas on some of the updates that I'm referencing here. Those are the two items that we discussed at the prior Finance and Audit Committee. Are there any questions in regards to either of those items that I just referenced, or actually President Warner and Director Simmons were both, of course, at that meeting? I don't know if there's anything that you would like to add to what I've already shared, but we'll open it up for either of them to add to that part of the conversation or to the remainder of the board remainder of the board members to ask any questions.
Linda, it doesn't look like Linda has any comments, and I don't. I think you did a good report, but I do see Director Gonzalez has a question. So
yes.
I'd like to start.
Thank you, President Warner. I had a quick question, Travis, around the composition of the committee. Has the composition of the committee shifted at all in light of COVID? Have you brought in any new voices, or have you seen the need to bring in new voices as a result of all this?
As far as the Finance and Audit Committee?
Yes.
No, the Finance Committee is an internal meeting, is an internal committee. So it's just key staff and then 3 of the board members.
So it's mostly the schedule, the frequency of meetings that has shifted. That's
correct. That is correct. Yeah, and just in response. Yeah, but we utilize, as we're doing, we have a separate committee that helps, that's much broader, that works on the budget. So then we have a separate committee. Anytime we do an ad hoc finance kind of review or effort, any of those things, we utilize the specific, subcommittee or task force to assist with us on this. But this committee is really just focused on the internal and then the 3 board members, and it's kind of really the internal processing of the information. But yeah, you're correct. It is just the difference in the timing based on a need to have a better response to what's going on, in response to the pandemic.
And follow-up question, should the public be expecting any change in frequency of information being published?
It's not likely, only because, really the dynamic nature of what's going on really doesn't give us too much of an opportunity to be doing too many updates in regards to all the information that comes to us. We have to then synthesize and then prepare for, that type of external publishing in that part of the conversation. So it would be pretty tricky to try and do something internal, because we already do it on a monthly basis in regards to, Dee doing updates in regards to the financial picture. Doug in his general manager's report is doing that on a monthly basis at the board meetings. And so that's probably going to keep on the current regular basis. The board members, of course, everybody was included over the last month in an additional meeting, moving forward up to the budget. So we may institute some similar conversations like that going forward if things begin to shift pretty dramatically. The Finance and Audit Committee may be a part of working with, the team to do some additional outreach to the board members to ensure everybody's keeping informed as they move towards key decisions as we continue to respond to the pandemic.
Thank you.
No problem. That's a great question.
Yeah, good question. Director Wade, did you have a comment or question?
Hi, yes, I did. And this was kind of just reflecting back on some of the public comment that was shared, particularly around perhaps budget priorities and just, the direction that we're going as an agency in light of COVID. And maybe perhaps Doug will share more in his report. But I'm also just curious, just from Director Stovall's point of view, and you touched on this a little bit, it sounds like, now more than ever, there's community members, there's transit-dependent writers who increasingly want to get involved in, some of these opportunities around community or public engagement. So has the Finance and Audit Committee considered, again, doing more, town halls, or I know we have some budget town halls that are coming up that are going to be open to the public in June. So, that's really reassuring for me as a board member to continue to have robust conversations. But I'm also just curious if the committee itself has factored into how, you want to continue to listen to community members as they're sharing their concerns.
So great question, Director Wade. Again, you nailed it. We actually are going to do these budget listening opportunities. I believe we've got 3 of them scheduled, and then we also have one in regards to Spanish speaking. And so, yeah, I mean, that's exactly what those are set up to accomplish. We've held these historically. We also have a pretty significant budget group that convenes annually to assist us in taking a look at this, which includes broad opportunities. We also include, the Transit Equity Committee to be able to take in their comments as we go through this whole process, and we're open to that. So yes, I mean, exactly what you just referenced, we are opening those listening opportunities, and if the need arises to do more, we could also consider that. But, as we expand and as we want to listen, you're exactly right. We are actually hopefully being proactive in the efforts to continue to get all of the comments in. And again, the one person, I think it was Gabrielle, who mentioned that the budget has already been decided. That of course isn't accurate, because the budget had not been decided, as President Warner has already mentioned. We will go through the next processes of considering the budget, taking in input before the board takes its final actions further along in the month of June.
Great. Yeah. Thank you for clarifying that.
Oh, that's a great question. Thank you.
It is a good question. Maybe I asked the general manager again. He mentioned it at the last meeting, but some people may not have heard that. Is that, you know, we're building a budget that is based on a lot of things that are changing, and as we see, and so there's going to be some flexibility built into this budget to deal with needs, and I think that more and more folks are going to be interested in our monthly financial reports, and I think the staff is committed to maybe come back to us on a quarterly basis as things are starting to emerge and change. And I know that Bernie Bottomley is also trying to, it sounds like, in charge now with a plan to actually figure out how we're going to ramp up and get writers back in the future. So I'm looking forward to those reports too, and I think our stakeholders will want to be engaged, and we'll want to get them engaged.
I'll be happy to comment on it at my general manager's comment.
All right, thank you. Any other questions or comments for Travis? And then I'm going to move on to the next report, which is the Transit Equity Advisory Committee, and Director Gonzalez, who probably has a little more time on to commit to this than he has in the last few months. So the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, President Warner, and to everyone on the call today. We had a meeting on, let's see, the days were a bit of a blur. I believe it was May 12th, not last week, the week before. Seems like an eternity already, but we did have a robust conversation with TIAC. Now, this is the Transit Equity Advisory Committee. It's comprised of over a dozen community organizations that each represent transit-dependent riders and sectors of our community that are key components to our community engagement efforts. So I just wanted to set that context up. So TIAC met on May 12th, and we discussed the face covering survey, and we're able to update the members on the results of the face covering survey, as well as set up a system to start distributing masks throughout the community. TriMet has set up a program to, at last I checked, was distributing 10,000 masks for free directly to Portland Metro community-based organizations. So many of our TIAC organizations opted into that program and helped us distribute those masks to community members. This is in addition to masks that have become available on the public transit vehicles themselves. TriMet also discussed an overview of the new equity webpage, which I believe we're going to be seeing some data in a subsequent report here today. But we were able to show this website that is focused on the overall equity work for the agency, and it's part of it is through the programs that are mandated federally by Title VI, and some of this is through our internal agency programs with respect to like supplier diversity and things of that nature. So the website is up and is starting to highlight milestones regarding the low-income fare program, affordable housing projects throughout our footprint, as well as the supplier diversity and minority contracting. So that was great to see the unveiling of that website. I encourage anyone out there to take a look. TIAC also received an update on the agency's efforts to develop the equity lens, the draft equity lens tool. Again, something that is a derivative of the Title VI federal mandate, a standard that we're proud to be holding up here in our region. And we were able to look at consulting for the year ahead to continue to build out the tool. So this has not only allowed us to unveil the tool, but to start discussing how we're going to work with the community to actually develop this tool over the next year. So that's an exciting process. TriMet returned to TIAC an overview of the TOD guidelines. So we got another version of changes that were briefed to TAC over 2 weeks ago. We got some additional feedback from that. So, we're seeing today the latest from all of that engagement. And TriMet provided an update on efforts to support the remote enrollment for the low-income FAIR program. So that's been another development, and of course working with the community organizations that are in TIAC to make sure that this enrollment program is able to be implemented throughout our community network. So that's going to make, hopefully, it's going to make it much easier for people to not only enroll in the program, but for our community agencies to support people in enrolling for the program. The numbers have already exceeded our expectations. I didn't get the most updated number, but we're well over 20,000 enrollees at this point. So that's been a pretty, I hesitate to say successful rollout because it just means there's a lot of need out there. But I like to say that the program, the adoption of the program shows that we are rolling it out effectively for those that need it. And finally, TIAC board members, Clackamas Community College student Ray Atkinson, who's a member on TIAC, provided an update on the Clackamas Community College's Shuttle program and outlined its community engagement plan. So there's some opportunities there for TriMet to continue to complement some of our other affiliates in their paratransit services. It was a good meeting. We had 26 meeting participants. We've adjusted to working remotely. It's been interesting to see how it's actually helping, especially with our youth participants, to be able to make it to these meetings. So I find it encouraging that while we adapt, we're also seeing the opportunity for better engagement through this digital model. So I was thrilled to see the participation level in the meeting. We covered some good stuff. I'll stop there. Happy to talk about any questions. And I just got an update. We're now over 30K in enrollees for the Low Income FAIR program.
Good, good. I see two board members with their hands up. I'll start with Director Way. You have your hand up. Is that from the last request?
Oh, actually that was from the last one, but I actually do have a quick question for Ozzy. So Ozzy, thank you so much for all your work in tracking so many of these issues that come before TIAC. One thing that I, again, sort of have been reflecting on is how we are, currently enforcing fares, and whether or not you have, heard from partners in terms of citations going up on our system, or if they're staying the same. I've heard our leadership say that we're not doing, that as often as we were before. And so I'm just curious if you've heard any feedback from TIAC members in terms of, the fare collection, as well as whether or not we're seeing maybe an increase or the same or decrease in citations.
Great question, Director Y. Thank you. And I was going to say, I feel like I might steal the thunder from the Safety and Security Subcommittee, but I see that they're not scheduled to report today. So I will gladly update on the information that was shared at TIAC. With our community organizations in TIAC, this issue of fare enforcement comes up frequently. And we do have a committee dedicated to safety and security, where fare enforcement and the training program for fare enforcement officials is discussed in greater detail. But with our community affiliates in the room, the questions that come from the community mean this is a topic that often gets brought up. So I will say that the question did come up in the last TIAC meeting about fare enforcement, and our TriMet staff was able to provide some updated data that clarifies how the enforcement program has shifted in light of COVID. I think that the message that was communicated earlier in the meeting about fair informing, not fair enforcing, is really the tip of the spear as far as how the enforcement agency is approaching the work. The last month was the least amount of citations in the last 5 have the hard number in front of me today, but we did see very low numbers in citations. The enforcement program is by and large looking at the rail system, where you don't already have the sort of natural checkpoint of people boarding and having to make that transaction upon boarding, because they do that the tapping before they get on the rail system. So enforcement has tended to emphasize those points of entry where the tapping is not quite so regulated by the bus operators. And nevertheless, the number of citations has gone down dramatically, as we've seen. And, truth be told, I think part of this is because we are seeing less riders, but I think that there's also the approach of the enforcement officials has led them to helping inform people about the protocols, how to pay, how to enroll in a low-income care program. And I think that is also driving the reduction in those numbers. And I will defer for greater details. I think the safety committee meeting is the place where these details are reported on a regular basis. And the next safety committee meeting is on June 29th. So there's an opportunity there to participate for anyone out there in the public as well.
Great. Thank you so much. I just want to quickly respond to that. I think while it's great to see, the citations decrease, I want to just speak a little bit to just so much of an increase, anxiety, fear, stress that many of our, especially transit-dependent folks, really have no option else, just their own mental health and how they're experiencing things on the system. And I know that for me and, many of the folks that I know, we have the luxury to work from home, and but, that's not the case for so many other people in different situations, and especially essential workers who, again, many of them have to continue to take transit to, really be the backbone of this pandemic right now. And so I would just take it a step further and maybe, explore this possibility of potentially freezing citations duration of the pandemic until there's more concrete plans for reopening, at least in Multnomah County, which is, one of our most populous counties. Just something to consider, and I know, Doug will probably have other thoughts around that, but I think this is just such a critical time right now for, again, transit-dependent riders, people who are, low income, and just having additional stressors of, someone coming up to you and questioning payment, and then, going through the citation process can be very detrimental. So, just wanted to bring that up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Director Bauman, did you have your hand raised?
I did. Thank you. Ozzy, thanks for that report. I think you mentioned a face covering survey, and yes. I had not heard of that before, and I wonder if you can give us a little bit more detail on what that involved.
There was a survey that was issued by TriNet out to, through the network, through the website. It gets distributed to the Writers Club, TIAC organizations to distribute to their membership. I don't have numbers for the number of respondents we got, but it was a broad public survey really evaluating the safety concerns of people and how they ride, how they have been impacted by ridership, and what their safety concerns are by riding the system. So that's provided some insight to where are people's concerns and how they feel about whether the bus driver wearing a mask or whether the shield protecting the bus drivers make them feel better. And so that insight was brought forward. Let me see here. We were also asking in the survey if the partners were open to offering services, and asked if they had the ability to distribute masks to provide them. So from that survey, we were able to discover that there were community affiliates willing to help distribute masks, and that's what led us to now how do we get them to you, and who would like to get some. Now there was, I believe we all got links to the survey. I'm not sure if you had a chance to see the questions themselves, but it was about really how are you riding? during, and now in COVID, and are you able to have your concerns and safety addressed? Let's see here. As far I got some information on the return of the survey itself. There's as far as the reach, we had 24,000 members in the Writers Club that were sent the survey, and there was 200 on the TAC email distribution survey, and that includes us on the board as well. I hope that answers your basic questions. I'll have to defer if you need more details on the findings of the survey. I'll have to go back to deferring to our community engagement team.
Would be interested in seeing that if that's available. But thank you for that, Ozzy.
Mm-hmm. I bet the staff can get that for you. So thank you. So I'd ask the board members if we've answered your question, to lower your hands, and I'm not confused about who to pick the next time. Looking at that concludes our board reports. Unless there's objection, I'm going to move on to the general manager's report and ask the general manager to maybe first comment on some of the things we heard during the public forum, or anything else he'd like to respond to before he gets into his report that he's prepared to give us this morning. Mr. General Manager.
Thank you very much, Mr. Board President, members of the board. So in terms of a few points I'll respond to in no particular order of importance. The first one is around the ATU negotiation was questioned. So because of COVID, the ATU's executive and a number of our leadership are meeting every single day, Monday through Friday, that is, right after we update our internal selves we have a leadership team that looks at the COVID policies and issues and advanced planning issues that are coming our way. So every day we meet on that. Negotiations by both parties agreement have basically been put on hold for a few months, where as things hopefully stabilize a little more so on the COVID side, in those discussions between the two parties, then we're hopefully looking forward to getting back to the bargaining table. And I think one of those items, in fact, is the apprenticeship program, which is not part of the bargaining. So it is being, TriMet is taking that to the ERB. So stay tuned. These matters will be brought through to our negotiating committee for management and the ATU executive, but we will not get into the dynamics of the negotiation. As any negotiator, they need to remain at the bargaining table between the parties. So I won't comment on specifics of bargaining. That's, I think, where it needs to reside. So anyhow, the second item was, in terms of budget transparency, I think a couple of the directors, myself, President Warner, got to this, is the budget has not been approved. That was referred to earlier this morning. The TFCC did their review with us for an hour plus this morning, and I think we satisfied their questions and answers. Hopefully, they moved on. But the board itself this will be coming to the June board meeting for discussion and hopefully anticipating adoption to get ready for the July 1st effective date for our fiscal year. So in terms of transparency, Bernie Bottomley and his team are, there's several that are set. I think it's 3 right now. I think there are a few more to come, including, for example, I think the CAT committee would be inviting them to participate as well as anybody from the public. So, and I encourage all the board members to participate in one or other of these coming up. So again, this is supplemental to the supplemental budget that we have coming forward. The next item was, and I may get the Brookshire to jump in here as well, and I'm mute here, is around, I think the Director Edwards was asking about the CARES Act criteria. So the CARES Act, for those at home, was part of the federal legislation, which TriMet received about just under $185 million. We refer to as $185 million, and it is not a able to be used, as he outlined correctly this morning, for lost fare revenues, so which is a significant impact for us, or lost revenues, but it can go towards some of our expense sides of the business. So normally, there's typically the federal relationships more on the capital specific project side, but because of the significance of this event and the economic impact, it is about helping TriNet provide the services it's able to provide, also based on the demand that's actually out there. So, Dee, I'm going to pause there and see, Dee, is there anything that you want to add if you're unmuted?
Sure. I think it's important for us to remember that the CARES Act funding was meant to cover costs related to COVID-19. And so we've been accumulating those costs, and they're quite expensive. Cleaning supplies alone are $300,000 to $500,000 a month, so plus labor and so on. So those are direct costs that can be attributed to it. We were also able to pull in the money using preventative maintenance funding to cover expenses that are not specific, that are related, but would take longer for us to collect through COVID. But on the other point regarding public information, we have posted all of the proposed adjustments to the last approved budget on our website. So we have the proposed budget, which was approved, and then now we're waiting for the adoption in June. But in the meantime, as conditions change, we post the proposed adjustments on the website.
Thank you, Dee. And the last item I would add that we heard commentary on, and I did talk about this at the TSCC hearing a little bit this morning, was the comments around ride connections and its reduction of funding. So part of this is that we have a contract with Ride Connection, and part of the dynamics that the principles that we're looking at is maintaining financial flexibility. Firstly, we don't know how many people will come back using paratransit or transit systems, let alone Ride Connection or WES. So in the contract that we have, typically we allocate that money over a year basis as part of our contract. So we have in this proposed budget, we want to retain flexibility. So the current budget draft that's out there now is, I think, with the federal contributions plus our own to Ride Connection, so $2.75 million anticipated for next year. So the reduction is about 18%, or actually just slightly less than the bus service that we've already cut back. So we're anticipating to monitor it versus put it in the contract and then it's kind of gone. We want to monitor it and see what ridership does come back. So I don't think anybody really knows, including ourselves, where this will go on ridership, let alone what other demands and significance the ridership and revenue impacts will have on the income. So there's a significance to maintaining flexibility here is one of our strategic principles. So the current scenario, which we are looking for feedback on, is that Ride Connection is not alone in the dynamics that this region and this world is facing. And so we're trying to manage this. As many people rely on the transit service fundamentally, we do have also, we're going to have to continue to fund our paratransit service, where they have backed up a lot of capacity available also. So the right now it's an 18% reduction over the total dollars federal and ourselves that we're looking at. But is in the budget, I also have an increased contingency to not know what is actually coming our way. Again, between ridership demand and let alone our financial circumstances of the severity that we may or may not be facing. So the goal is that, in fact, we do restore full service for all parts of our business, but we want to manage the cash that keeps us as flexible as possible. So that's probably where I'll leave that there, and happy to answer any questions on that. In terms of my report this morning overall, I want to give you a bit of an update on COVID, because there has been some important changes that have come this way, particularly since the Governor Kate Brown's recent order has come out a couple of weeks ago. Give you a brief update as we've talked about ridership, where that fits for the month of April, looking back a bit. And as Director Gonzalez has spoken about, want to give some great insights into a DBE program. So we've got a presentation there. And finally, want to talk about an as you know, we received some encouraging news in the last few weeks from Governor Kate Brown, as she laid out a framework for hopefully for all of our benefit about reopening Oregon back up. For us, it's a clear sign and also evidence of the aggressive social distancing, not only as a state that's been practiced, but also particularly here on TriMet, that we've all endured for the last number of months. I think it's been effective. We are not, as you heard earlier today, we are actually doubling down on cleaning standards, and with those comes somewhere up to $12 million. It does come out of the CARES Act. Purchasing equipment, foggers and such that help invest in the confidence, hopefully the public will see in our standards for cleanliness to come back and trust us to use the system as we open back up. So we're not taking our focus off the importance of not being through this challenge of the virus, let alone the economics that it's unleashed challenges. In terms of today, because of the standard reviews, we're very fortunate, and the great work of our frontline operators, our essential service operators, and mechanics and cleaners. To date, we've only one of our operators has tested positive for COVID-19. That was back in late March, and the operator has since turned to work in April. So just great appreciation for great continued help for that person and their families. I think it's particularly important, this result, knowing how many hundreds of thousands of boardings, we carry about 100,000 boardings even during COVID today. Typically is around 300,000, but we're down by about a third of our ridership. So with that, it's just a really great result, and we've got to keep focusing on keeping our employees safe and our customers safe as well. And we're not going to waver from that. We also have had hundreds of employees take leave during the pandemic, but that can be attributed to a variety of reasons, including self-quarantine, the need to take care of child care while the schools are closed, and there's another obvious reason I think everyone is aware of. So it's there and available. Our staff are taking advantage of it. We've been averaging around 15 to 18% absenteeism throughout this significant time. So I think we're starting to see those numbers come down. And I think that's another positive sign as they decline as we look to the recovery, the phase 1 reopening of this Tri-County area that we provide services to. Now, in preparation as this reopening, we've implemented a number of new policies and procedures, particularly in accordance with Governor Kate Brown's order, as well as the Oregon Health Authority that we work very, very closely with on a daily basis almost. I'd like to give you a couple examples of that, if I may. So firstly, face coverings are now required for all of our employees and our riders for using the system, and who can't maintain 6 feet distance from others. That's important. I'll talk about the 6-foot distancing here in a bit as well, because that has changed under the governor's order. We understand also that not everyone has a face covering, so I've indicated at the TSCC hearing, TriMet, I believe it's the first in the country. In fact, the first in North America. I think Montreal's now followed us, Montreal, Canada, just last week, where we are actually going to provide face coverings to individuals who don't have their own. So that's a big investment, a big step on top of the cleaning and these other initiatives that we've undertaken with all signage, announcements. We will have face coverings and hand sanitizer available on all the bus fleet that we're in the process of implementing right now, on top of the cleaners, the foggers, disinfectant. And we're actually testing UV lights right now. So I think even the FDA came out just even yesterday and confirmed that UV is not a sanctioned product at this point in time, but we're in the test behind the scenes stage at this point in time. As we've also heard, TriMet has taken an inform and supply approach to managing masks, as opposed to inform and not enforcing. So there are exceptions that come out where children under 2 are not able to wear a mask, of course, infants, and as well as there are certain individuals who may have a medical condition. So we have to be careful not to prejudge somebody who may not be wearing a mask. And so this is a delicate balance that we're hoping we're trying to set the environment to do the right thing, to be considerate of others, take care of yourself, and let's not race to judgment on others. But we want to make sure that this, combined with the want to be careful that we're not supplying the whole Tri-County region for all reasons beyond transit, because but we want to make sure we're providing accessible distribution channels that are reasonable. And so again, I think I've talked about the cleaning side of things, but we are adding about 145 cleaners on the system on a daily basis today, at night and on the system. We are adding over 100 more, maybe 100 to up to 150. We'll see what it takes. We are targeting to hit a 4-hour cleaning standard. Again, sometimes we have disruptions in the system before ours can't be maintained, but that's our target. We're trying to support to maintain that goal and ultimately the confidence in the system where people want to come back. We, I think, are just getting in receipt now of 36 of these foggers, which are hydrogen peroxide for the bus side. We can't use that on the rail side solely because of all the electronics that run on the roof, the sides, and the electronic panels in the train. So we're very much focusing on the buses with the foggers, and that's where we'll also see a lot more cleaners out on the system, and particularly the transit loops and such. Go through a couple notes here. We also, part of these are the underpinning to move also to the governor's order of a 3-foot distancing from 6 foot. Currently, we have between 10 to 15 customers we allow on a bus. This will move us somewhere between that 22 to 25 range on the bus as the community opens back up. But instead of just turning this on, I want to get these other practices of signage and seat signage, protecting the operators from 6 feet from the public as they pass by. We're finishing up the bus barriers on the system as I think in the next 3 weeks they arrive, and then we start the installation process on those bus barriers. All these are a number of steps while we hire cleaners, and then we will activate to the 3-foot distance stage. So per the governor's order. So, but we're going to remain at the 6 foot for the next number of weeks until we the rest of this gets put in place, because it does take a bit of time. So, in terms of ridership, ridership is for April is down on average about 70% due to COVID-19. It seems to be a little bit consistent. We saw a little bit of an uptick here in May, but it's been around, I think, around 67% now. But we're generally in that range. Compared to a year ago, we were down 68.4% on the weekly basis. The weekly bus ridership is 69%. Max ridership down 67%, and West was down nearly 83%. We are seeing smaller declines in the off-peak versus peak service, suggesting the largest impact to us is really around the daily commuter population. And we hope to gain more as Bernie Bonnetly's undertaking a ridership recovery group. Say, what are those ways that we have to reach out to customers, to engage customers? Are there different segments? Probably a lot more significantly, people fundamentally have the capability of working from home. And in fact, TriMet is looking at its own policy, updating that right now as well. So I suspect many type of businesses and services are evaluating this within taking advantage of technology. So I think that's going to have a bigger impact on us for ridership in the future. We are constantly monitoring social media as well, and any comments around social distancing challenges we might have. If we see more riders on a route, just so the board and the public know, we have a significant spare ratio that buses and operators we can put in place if we have, I'll call them hot spots of pass-ups and things of that nature. So in addition to our core service, we have some ways to supplement to manage the pass-ups and potential social distancing to take care of our customers around the region. The whole goal here, I think, for all of us is ensuring public confidence, safety, and trust to get them where they need to go as much as possible. It's not an easy task when you've got a multi-billion-dollar organization to move on a dime. But I must say, this organization, despite the challenges of the outset, as the world went through, including hospitals getting PPE, I think I really want to commend all the staff and our contractors in TriMet Nation here for what they've done and are doing out there every single day. It really is any questions anyone has from the board, but happy to entertain them. If not, I'll continue on.
I see Director Way has her hand up. So please ask away, Director Way.
Sure. Sorry, Doug. I should have also waited for you to complete your whole report, but at some point, if you want to, I think it'd be great if you can talk a little bit about, you know, some of the references to reducing citations that Ozzy has referenced in his report. And I know that right now, a lot of our TriMet workers, at least the ones that are, you know, monitoring masks, are playing different roles in terms of, you know, maybe distributing masks, or it sounds like we're sort of repurposing some of those positions, but also just in line with reducing the amount of contacts that folks are exposed to. I think that citation goes, no pun intended, but hand in hand with that. And so I wonder if you can talk later or now about, you know, our approach to how we're again doing the fair enforcement, as some folks alluded to. What is our communications plan around that, especially right now, and as well as the citation concerns?
Sure. So I think to the citation side of things, I think the results are evident. This is a delicate. This is not a free transit system right now, and we want to the hot card can be tapped and used as an individual, the operator or others checking, and so the cash piece, because it's, you know, you can't clean money to manage the virus around this. So it really is informing. The enforcement side is really been trying to be educational and trying to appeal to, frankly, people's sense that if you're going to use the system, it is a proof of payment system. It is not a free system right now. And yes, we know many people are struggling. We do have the low-income fare program, one of the most probably robust ones in this whole country. I think as Director Gonzalez indicated that if people do need that as a tool, I really encourage them to apply. I think we're at, as I said, 30,000 people, Director Gonzalez announced today. So I don't see us stopping citations, because on the one hand, there are many people who in fact can't afford to pay. Not just, there's some who can't for sure, but many can. So if they're going to use the system, and we have many people who are on yearly passes, so there's many types of riders out there. So we are not doing hard enforcement, but more informing type of enforcement. I think is reflective of the reduction of citations. So this came up in some transit agencies now are moving back at the early stage, like Philadelphia, Boston, and others are now moving back to collecting cash. That is not a practice we're anticipating moving on immediately. At some point, we may activate cash back, but I personally would like to see us in more control of the virus first. And we're going to work with the health authorities on any advice they might have on that. So at some point, the objective is to move back to cash. And I think, as we've always done, some people even ask, do we see ourselves eliminating cash? So I don't see that happening in any part of any conversations we are having, short, medium, or longer term. So the citations, I think there are some examples where those tools do need to be available, but it very much is more of an education type of process right now. And if someone doesn't, we don't want to refuse them. In terms of communication, I think we have been softer on the communications, because this is not intended to be a please come ride for free, because we do have these other programs available. So we've consciously been somewhat soft on this, because we are, on the one hand, there's the enforcement piece. On the other hand is everyone is asking for, don't cut our service. And so one is connected, the string of enforcement and collecting revenues is our financial occupants need to be able to actually help pay the bills. But we want to do so in a very delicate and reasonable manner. So I think that's probably the comments I have on they went home, stay in place. And so our employees, which we're paying, is to actually help the community back with what they do best is customer service, and they're great drivers. So we have been delivering many of the Meals on Wheels for this region since the start, and we'll do that as long as we can. And the other one is we've also helped out on the recycling. While some of the recycling depots were closed, and the collecting of recyclables and taking them up to the recycling depots where they've been really concentrated. And thirdly, we've also been utilizing some of our paratransit drivers to actually, instead of taking people to where they want to go, actually delivering groceries to them. And this is something I think raised at the previous board meeting that others, including Director Bowman, had identified. So that is in place and currently working. So we're trying to balance this very complex orchestra here of different services where we're able to provide them, and also where there's demand. So I'm not sure if there's any other questions, but try and answer those best I can. Okay. If not, I want to move on. In the response to the last month's interest by board members having a bit of a more robust update on TriMet's inclusionary and contracting work and the progress across the construction project, this morning I was going to ask if John Gardner and Aidan Gronauer, both of the are really important department here, to give us a snapshot of the DBE program and the efforts. So, John, you can unmute as well as yourself, Aidan. I'm going to turn it over to you. This is housed, just so you know, within our Department of Transit Equity, Inclusion, and Community Affairs. And John is doing a great job, and we're really grateful that Aidan's here as well, who joined not too long ago, really helping us in this work. So I'm going to turn it over to you, gentlemen.
Thanks, Doug. Good morning, President Warner, members of the board. Apologies, I'm not sure if you can hear this, but people are doing construction outside my house, so if it sounds, I'll mute myself once I get through my introduction of Aidan. So yeah, we wanted to provide a snapshot across some of our utilization efforts on some various projects that have already come before the board, just as a status update. And I'm going to ask Aidan Gronauer, TriMet's DBE and Workforce Equity Program Administrator, to kind of walk you through this effort. He put this together. Aidan has been an excellent addition to the team. He's worked for public agencies like Metro, Portland Public Schools, and Home Forward in similar roles, managing programs for utilization. And he is a blessing who has really supercharged our efforts. His work, along with the work of Steve Witter and his team, I think have helped us continue our excellence when it comes to minority contracting. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to Aidan to walk you through his report.
Thank you, John. I appreciate it. Good morning, President Warner and board directors. I'm here this morning to present to you a certified business utilization update, highlighting a few large projects currently underway. Do I need to share my screen, Jeff?
It's already up, I think.
Oh, it's already up. Wonderful. Okay.
Yeah, if you can just tell me when to advance the slides, and I will do that for you.
Will do. Thank you, sir. So I'll start with a quick overview of kind of the DBE program and some work we do, followed by a detailed look at 7 capital projects, and conclude with agency's next steps. So first off, TriMet maintains its national award-winning model for involving disadvantaged and small businesses owned by people of color and women that began with the Interstate Max Light Rail project back in 2000. And every year we continue to raise the bar. TriMet is an economic engine for our small business community. We believe businesses and people building our transit system should represent the demographics and diversity of our region. And that's why we're committed to providing opportunities to disadvantaged business enterprises in efforts to improve mobility throughout the Portland metro region. For over 20 years, we've consistently focused on pushing ourselves to do more to level the playing field for minority contractors and workers and ensure that our projects contribute to the regional growth and capacity of DBE firms. So I'd also also like to point out that currently TriMet is a race and gender neutral contracting agency. This means that TriMet does not use quotas or set-asides on the U.S. Department of Transportation assigned contracts. As a principal recipient of federal funds, TriMet sets a triennial overall DVE aspirational goal for DVE participation on U.S. DOT-assisted contracts. We, myself included, track and analyze our progress towards meeting those goals on a consistent basis and take corrective actions if needed on not meeting goals. The small business or certified business program is an element of the DVE program. Federal versus local funding. So whether we are tracking DVE utilization or all certified business utilization depends really on the funding source. One way to think of it is any project with even $1 of federal funding utilizes the DVE program. So we track DVE utilization on that project. And then all of the projects with local funding, we're tracking all certification types. As far as certification types go, TriMet is a member of the Unified Certification Program, a UCP, that is administered by our State of Oregon Certification Office of Business Inclusion and Diversity, otherwise known as COBID, with a B, not a B. Meaning that COBID administers the certification process of businesses in any of the certification types you see below. I think it's important to point this out because sometimes it can be alphabet soup if we don't spell it out. So DVE stands for Disadvantaged Business Enterprise. MBE is a minority-owned business enterprise. WBE is a women-owned business enterprise. SDVBE is a service-disabled veteran business-owned or owned business enterprise. And ESB is an emerging small business. And again, like I said, COBID is our certification office at the state level, and businesses can be certified in any of the certification types that are applicable to them. So as you can see on an attachment that should be in your board packet on certified businesses listed by project, many businesses are certified in multiple certification types. All right, next slide if you could, Jeff. Thank you. So these are the highlighted projects that I want to review with you all this morning. I just want to point out that this is a snapshot in time. This data that you'll see on these following slides is based on what was reported in Elations, which is our current utilization tracking software, as of 5/11, so May 1st of this month. It is a snapshot in time, meaning that the projects are fluid and data changes on a daily basis based on contract awards, modifications, payments made, payments received. And I just wanted to start off with a shout out to Executive Director Steve Witter and his team for all the great work that they're consistently doing on these projects. So these are the 7 projects that I'm going to cover this morning. Southwest Corridor, Division Transit Street Project, the Max Red Line Extension Project, Improvement Project, Gideon Overcrossing Project, Powell Bus Garage Replacement Project, Columbia 4th Bus Base Facility Project, and Steel Bridge, the current Steel Bridge Improvements Project. All right, next slide, please, Jeff. Thank you, sir. So this is a snapshot. I'll walk you through the general format of this slide because the continuous slides are very similar in the layout. So this one is for Southwest Corridor Project. As you can see, there's 2 different contracts that we'll be looking at for this one. There's a transit design contract at the top in blue, and then there is an urban design contract below in orange. This is a federally funded project, so we are tracking DVE utilization on this project. I'll go over the first one and kind of talk you through how these look. So first I list the prime contractor for this transit design project. It is a partnership, a joint venture between AECOM, David Evans and Associates and Parametrics, known as the Southwest Transit Partners. So they are working together on this project. I've listed for you the start and end date of this project as of now, as well as the contract number. And the percentage complete is really a number that I've based to help myself track progress on this project. That number does changed, but it is based on comparing the prime payment to the prime contract award, so kind of tracking over time how close to completion this project is. I also compare that to the date that it's set to end when I'm tracking how they're doing towards goal. Then I've listed the goal. So the DDE goal that was proposed in this contract by Southwest Transit Partners was 20% DDE utilization. Then I have the prime contract award amount. I have the prime contract payment to date, or as of 5/1, excuse me. And then I have the DDE contract awarded and the DDE payment. Those percentages you see below on the projection and actual utilization are based on two things. So the projection is based on the DDE contracts awarded compared to the prime contracts awarded amount. And the actual utilization is comparing the payment to the prime compared to payments to the DDE. I've also listed for you the number of firms on this project. That includes the prime contractor, and then the number of DDE firms, which I know was information that Director Gonzalez had asked for specifically. So for this project, as you can see, the DDE goal is 20%. Based on the award amount, they're at about 22%, so that is over goal. That is great. That is great news. And then actual, which is based on payments to date, and again, this increases over time as more payments come in. They're at 16%. So this project is looking really good, on track for goal. The next project here below it is the urban design portion, which is being performed by the prime contractor ZGF. This project has a DDE goal of 19.5%, and based on the projection of awards, they're not quite meeting goal yet, but again, this is very early on. They have a lot more modifications coming to this contract, and based on their future projections, they will be on goal. So this project is moving along quite well. Again, actual payments, this is pretty early on in the project, so I don't expect to see the payments caught up to the goal quite yet on this one. But again, you can kind of look at these dollar amounts as well as they grow, looking at how much money is actually going into disadvantaged business enterprise businesses' pockets. That is what I mean by we are an economic engine for growth for our marginal or small business community here. All right. I can either go with specific questions on each slide, or I can keep going through each project.
I suggest, Aiden, you move through all the slides and we'll ask questions at the end.
Yes, sir. You got it. Okay, next slide, Jeff. So Division Transit Project, this is one I'm sure you're all aware of. I'll start off with the design first, though. So for the design, I've separated, again, design in blue and construction in orange. So for design, it went to WFP contractor or firm, and this one is quite far along as far as its progress. The DDE goal was 28%. They are, based on awards right now, at 24%. I do expect that to increase here shortly as more modifications come in on this one. And their actual payments to date is at 25%. So they right along. We're keeping an eye on that one. That one should meet goal as well. And then we have the construction below, and this one is a little bit unique in that, as you all are aware, the prime contractor award went to Raymore Construction, who is a DDE. So, you know, we are separating. Their goal is based on subcontractors, not themselves. But we do track payments based on what is being paid to the prime, separated by what is paid to the subs as well. So this one, their DDE goal is 36%. They right now are in the very beginning stages of the project. This one will change quite a bit over time, but it is definitely increasing incrementally over time here. So they project, based on subcontractors that they have awarded thus far, to DVEs, they're at about 26. That will definitely increase over time here in the near future. And then actual payments, that number looks a little high at the 94%, but that is based on what has been paid to the DVE subcontractors, and then self-perform work on the project that's being done by Rainmore Construction itself. So that one, we're looking for some very high percentage utilizations on, and it's doing quite well. And as you can see, there are 14 DVE firms outside of Rainmore Construction. So that is going along quite well. Next slide, please, Jeff. So the Max Redline Extension and Improvement Project for design, we have Parametric with a DVE goal of 19%. Based on awards to date, they're at 10%, and actual payment at 13%. So they continue to increase. You can see they're also beginning stages as far as, really ramping up design as they work in conjunction with the prime contractor because they're in pre-construction stages right now. So that one will increase over time also. And then for construction, that went to Stacy and Whitback, who presented a DVE utilization goal of 20%. There's no data really to report on the utilization with this yet because, as I just mentioned, the prime contract, the CNGC contract, is currently in pre-construction. So they haven't really brought on any subcontractors yet. You won't start to see, obviously, any awards or payments tracked on that yet. But I just want to give you a snapshot of what their goal is presented at, and they are very confident that they will achieve and exceed that. Next slide, please. The Gideon Overcrossing Project. So this by Jacobs, that was known formerly as CH2M, and they presented a DVE goal of 44%, which is fantastic. They, right now, based on awards, are at 36%, and actual payments 41%. So they are doing quite stellar on progress toward achieving their goal. And then the construction portion of it, Stacy and Whitback is the prime on that. They presented a DVE goal of 11%, and they are exceeding that with projections right now at 15%, and their actual payments at 10%. And they are on target to meet and exceed that goal as well. Next slide, please.
We're just going to maybe move a little faster if you can.
Of course. Powell Bus Garage Project, 9. They are have a little work to do, but are working very diligently to get their numbers up. It has to do with a little bit of the lag in reporting in the system. So I have confidence that will move up as well. And construction went to J.E. Dunn, and they are doing quite well on target to meet goal. Next slide, please. Columbia Forest Bus Base went to Stantec Design, 20% goal. This one is, as well as the Powell Bus Garage, are locally funded projects, so we are tracking all certification types. So they are on track to meet their goal and have already met it with their awards. And then their construction went to Skanska, in pre-construction right now, so there are no subcontractor awards or payments. All right, and next slide, please. Steel Bridge, again, 10% from Jacobs on the certified business utilization, and they are on target to meet goals. And then Stacy and Whitback for the construction, we will see this one increase as the work starts to begin more diligently on that project. Okay, next slide, please. All right, so that was a snapshot of 7 major capital projects, and happy to answer any questions around that after this last slide. So agency next steps, I wanted to point out a few things. So as you all are aware, I believe, TriMet has a business plan goal to grow business inclusion and diversity efforts across all departments. So we've been working with the procurement contracts team to update policies, improve procedures. We have a lot of great ideas around that. You'll be tracking and reporting software that is state-of-the-art and highly recognized and utilized in this region called B2G Now and LTP Tracker. We're in the implementation stage right now and hope to have the new software implemented in the next 6 to 8 weeks. And then we will be able to track information across all departments and really set a baseline and look for areas of opportunity. And then the last, but certainly not least, we have just recently formed a Small Business Equity Advisory Committee that is going to help kind of guide us and be a representation of the small business community to give us feedback wherever needed. And that concludes my presentation. Please let me know if you have any questions that I can answer for you.
I suspect there are questions. First, this is really wonderful, and reporting is great. Reporting and comparing is great, and so we should be very proud of this program. I don't see any hand. Oh, I do see a hand raised. Director Gonzalez.
Very much. President Warner, thank you for the overview. This is a great summary of where the projects are currently. I really appreciate the update on the use of LCP Tracker and B2G as software tools. My question is about how we, if you have any thoughts about how the use and the rollout of those tools might direct any future policy thoughts. Are we, I know, I'm familiar with the tools. I know they give us faster data, richer data more immediately, but are we looking to have that data inform any future procurement policies or any future practices? Is it going to help drive where we focus equity programs as we learn from that system?
End up being 4 to 5.
Thank you for that question.
Doesn't matter.
So I believe so. Currently, I have about a cross-departmental representation of about 7 members on the stakeholder committee helping with the implementation. And as we've been going through the implementation of this new software, we have been recognizing areas that we could tighten up, procedures, areas that we have wanted to kind of increase equity, diversity, inclusion, and that this whole process has been informing us on. So I do believe that we will see some improvements and some updates on procedures and policies as we go through.
I might just add to that. I think this is a really great example and a great presentation aided by you and John. This is part of the evolution of this age analytical in using, you know, it gets user loosely big data, but we're evolving as an agency and using technology now in ways we hadn't even contemplated. So programs like you just referenced, we're doing this through many parts of the organization, so we need the data to be able to cut it and analyze it to make, frankly, more evolved and complex decision making to help inform us. So the answer would be yes. Otherwise, we want to maximize the return on the investment here, and I think that's part of it.
Agreed. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. I couldn't raise them hand fast enough on the machine. I just wanted to add to the comments made by Director Kelsey. We are learning from the use of the LCP Tracker database as an example. Once we get information about the vendors using that data, we could see the percentages of females as well as self-designated ethnic minorities across the different labor trades. So something that I'm finding really useful is we will be able to see the difference between a cement mason and an iron welder, for example, and to see the demographic shift in those consistently across multiple projects. It helps in other agencies. It's helped us go towards the agency and say, this is where we want to actually focus our outreach, because you might be getting beat by the bricklayers versus the cement masons, and so we want to focus our outreach efforts around that. I just want to point that out because this is what the use of these tools will allow us to get closer to.
Yeah, great.
Director Edwards?
Yes, thank you, President Warner. Aidan, John, great report. Thank you very much for the work you do. I know it's tough to try to keep all these moving parts, so that they make sense and they work out. My question and concern was in light of what has happened on the Division Street project. The bid process, I'm concerned about the oversight on that and what oversight, and maybe Aidan, you can share what missteps happened on that, and what has been put in place to try to make sure that that never happens again. And then I have another follow-up question to that as well.
Okay.
Sure, and I don't know if John Gardner wanted to speak to that, or...
Yeah, I guess, sorry, this is John. Let me just say that it was brought to our attention in the last few weeks that there were concerns with some of the process using contracting with subcontracts on Division based on different contracting associations getting updates. And so we have looked at the outreach strategy and plan, and we actually feel like Raymore has followed the plan they submitted, and we have an analysis of the contractors, and I think you can see that in your packet that Aidan developed that shows the different contractors, and it's quite a spread of firms associated with multiple different contracting associations. It has allowed us to think through good faith efforts across all contractors to make sure we're as explicit as we need to be to get the word out about the contracting opportunities across different projects. So some of the concerns that were mentioned by some community contractors, I think in the last 2 weeks we've been looking into, Aidan's been reviewing the approach to make sure that they followed suit with what they promised in their proposal. And so far they have, and we're still just working with them to make sure they get even more word out about any future opportunities related to that project.
Thank you. And my thoughts on this are that, I think that happened on this is the fact that this is a very unique situation simply because we have a MBE, a DBE that's actually the prime on this project. So that's something that I don't think has occurred before with TriMet, and so that makes it unique in and of itself. That MBE DBE also has a project that they've never been saddled with before as to the scope and size of the project, and so I'm sure that their focus as well is on performance and making sure that they perform admirably and come in on time and come in, of course, under budget. With that, like I say, I think my concern is that we have things in place so that it doesn't matter whether it's a WBE, MBE, ESB, or DBE that's the prime, that we have some processes in place to make sure that we have some oversight to check through the process to make sure that it's an open and transparent process and everyone has that opportunity to take advantage of it. My follow-up question was in regard to the Small Business Equity Advisory Committee. How is that put together and who participates on that committee?
Sure, I can speak to that. And I want to say I agree with you, Director Edwards, and I will be looking at processes that we can improve on transparency going forward. So as far as the Small Business Equity Advisory Committee, this committee has just been formed. We have not had our first meeting yet. That is scheduled in a couple weeks here. We're working in tandem with the procurement contracting department here at TriMet on the meetings. We currently have about 9 small businesses, certified small businesses that have elected to be on the committee. That can grow over time. I wouldn't grow it too large to where it's not productive, but I would definitely open it up to others that are interested in joining. Currently, there is a kind of a cross-representation of certified small businesses covering all of the certification types that I listed, as well as different trade on the committee. So we haven't started yet. We haven't had our first meeting, but we're very much looking forward.
Aiden, are there any, I know you said Small Business Equity Advisory Committee, but I would hope that there would be perhaps some representation from larger businesses as well to help provide some insight and have another perspective on how that's going to work and dovetail with their efforts as well.
That's a wonderful idea. Thank you.
I echo that, and on the heels of the comment you made earlier, Director Edwards, there's an opportunity to ensure that any concerns we have with a prime contractor, we're treating evenly across all of our prime network. I understand there's been some questions raised recently around the Division Transit project and the practices of the prime and subcontracting. I acknowledge that having an MBE come in as a prime is not an opportunity for us to start changing the standards by which we hold all primes, but it is an opportunity to learn if we need to elevate standards across our prime network. So I see that there's an opportunity to do exactly that, and I echo Director Edwards' sentiment that having some primes and even trade partners considered as part of this will help us really understand where the sticking points are for us to make sure that this work is done as best as we possibly could.
It's Doug. I think those are excellent comments. I think we're absolutely going to incorporate those. I think this is part of the price of trying to lead. I think we're with the largest DE contract award in the state's history here. The goal is for it not to be unique. The goal is for it to become settled practice, and I think these are the learnings we're going to have to undertake.
Put the phone number in
while we go through this. So I think this is just great feedback in the conversation. So I've also asked Steve Winter, the head of our engineering construction group, to actually do a bit of a lessons learned here under his leadership to see what we can incorporate, including all these comments for the future. So we want to keep building the snowball, not reducing it. So thank you for good comments.
Were there any other comments or questions by the board? I still see Keith's and Ozzy's hand raised. I just think they haven't taken them down yet. They're down now, thank you. Are there any other board members that have any questions, comments? I guess I just want to say great presentation. One of the things that Director Gonzalez brought up and Director Edwards has in the past is, we have a lot of major construction going on with our projects, and it would be nice to understand the actual people involved in terms of women, minorities. Just again obviously there's competition that helps again drive the numbers, but just to understand where people are doing well and what can be done. So I don't know whether that's something you can provide us with the tracking systems you have in place. I don't want to give you a lot more work, but if those numbers are available too on a regular basis, whether it's yearly or semi-annually, just how we're doing in our construction projects and the workforce on those construction projects, I think that would be very instructive and useful in terms of helping the contractors do better.
Absolutely, we can do that.
Okay, thank you very much.
Aidan, John, thank you very much. Great presentation. I know you could probably feel Aidan's excitement and enthusiasm, and that's not just the WebEx, that's Aidan in real life. So you just got to take what we're taking advantage of with his talent. So thank you, Aidan and John. I have one last topic. I know it's gone on for a long time today on the General Manager report. We had lots to cover. I know, and I want to end up on this was a great report. I've got another good piece of news here. Sometimes during these times that we're in, the unnerving times we're in, or even jolting, sometimes you'll look for areas where we actually got successes going on, and that's just one thing I want to share with you and the public today. And it's really acknowledging our Southwest Corridor team. No, the project's not approved. No, it's not built or under construction. But there's an immense amount of work and public outreach that's been going on by that team, and it's very sophisticated. And the team, I just want to share with you that they're the recipients of the 2020, what's referred to as the EPIC N Outstanding Community Partner Award here. Now, EPIC N, it stands for Educational Program for Innovation in Communities Network. Now, their mission is to unite universities and communities to promote livability fundamentally. TriMet, and specifically to this group, is a partnership that they undertook proactively with students from several disciplines and with the University of Oregon. And as part of their studies, helped to explore sustainability initiatives, particularly around the Southwest Corridor. This award, these students, they got real live experience, real world experience, and shared their innovative approaches to placemaking, climate change, community building, and fundamental urban mobility. Projects like this don't come along every day, as we all know. The award was presented by the Sustainable City Year Program, and it commended TriMet, and specifically the Southwest Corridor team, as a community partner that went above and beyond in the work and the mentorship with these students that they partnered with. So I really want to call out the individuals who actually made it happen. It's easy for TriMet to invest in these things, but these are the folks who made it happen. Jeff Doran, Leah Robbins, Jennifer Kuzer, and there were so many others that went with this, but those are the primary leaders. They were selected amongst the finalists, literally not just from this region, but from across the country. So it's a real commendable award. TriMet's real proud of them, and I hope wanted to share that with you today. So that would conclude my report, and happy to answer any questions or any comments you might have.
Thank you, Mr. General Manager. I'll see if there's any comments or further questions from the board. I see no hands raised. So I think we can declare victory here. Thank you again. How's the board doing? Do we need maybe a 5-minute break so people can stand up and stretch and come back? Or should we just keep going?
5-minute break would be good for me.
That'd be so kind.
Okay, why don't we take a 5-minute break? So let's come back in 5 minutes and get started again, okay? Thank you.